Left of the box. This is an interesting update. I think the people are beginning to understand the power we have. From Nikki Ashton, she is another MP from the NDP who's also outspoken and one of the few NDP MPs that I wish would just take over the party already. She says, I welcome this lawsuit against the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Lawsuit, you say? Canada should not be in the business of selling any weapons to Israel in their destruction of Gaza. We need immediate international arms embargo on Israel now. So what is happening? You see here, this article is from the Star, and I don't like clicking on articles from the Star because they have limits as to how many articles from the Star you can read in a month, but I don't need to click on that because Al Jazeera has the full story here as well. Palestinian Canadians sue Foreign Minister Joly over arms export to Israel. Sending military goods to Israel during Gaza war violates Canada and international law, lawsuit argues. Palestinian Canadians and human rights lawyers are suing Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly over exports of military equipment to Israel, which they argue violates Canada's obligation under domestic and international law. Hell yeah, sue the hell out of them. The lawsuit filed on Tuesday asks a federal court to order the Canadian government to stop issuing export permits for military goods and technologies destined for Israel. Now, one thing the Canadian government will say is, well, the weapons we're selling Israel are non-lethal weapons, which just means they're the components to lethal weapons. So you put them together and then suddenly it's a lethal weapon. It is just a word play that the government wants to try to use to deny accountability for what they're doing. It also asks the courts to deem the insurance of such permits unlawful. We are seeking to hold Canada to its own standards and to its international legal obligations, said Henry Off, board member of Canadian Lawyer for International Human Rights. Claire Har, one of the groups involved in the case. We don't want the Canadian government to be contributing to the mass starvation and bombardment of Gaza. One way of cutting off Canada's contributions is by cutting off its military support to Israel. Off told Al Jazeera in a phone interview, military exports to Israel have come under greater scrutiny since October 7th, when the Israeli military launched military offensive in the Gaza Strip that has now killed more than 30,000 Palestinians. Thousands of others are believed to be dead, buried under the rubble. We're never going to know the true amount. There's so many bodies that will never be accounted for. So many families that have been wiped out to the point that there's nobody to even left to report them missing. And I don't think like all of Gaza is going to become like an archaeological dig site where they start digging it up to see how many people are there, which is just so disturbing that we have so many people that have just been disappeared. And it's continuing. It needs to stop. But we'll never know the true number of how many people died from what the Israeli government is doing. So this organization wrote in an open letter to the Canadian government in late January, arguing Ottawa to immediately halt all exports due to concerns the weapons could be used in human rights violations against Palestinians in the coastal enclave. Canadian arms exports to Israel totaled more than $15 million in 2022, according to official figures. Citing government data, the Maple News website first reported in February that Canada authorized at least $20.9 million. Oh, okay, we're talking about different currencies here. So in 2022, it was 21.3 million Canadian. So in February, that Canada authorized at least 28.5 million Canadian in new military exports to Israel in the first 2 months of the Gaza war. So in all of 2022, we exported just over 21 million, and that was in an entire year. And in February, since the start of this, over 28 million in just the first 2 months of the Gaza war. That report spurred widespread criticisms and calls to end exports. Last week, protesters rallied outside weapons companies' facilities in several cities across Canada, including Vancouver, Quebec City, and Scarborough. Canada's contempt for international Canadian law by approving a dramatic increase in military exports to Israel since the latter commenced its bombardment of Gaza compels us to seek legal action to hold Canada to account. Palestinian Canadian and one of the lawsuit applicants said in a statement. I don't think we need to go over the whole article, but we know what's happening here. So good move. Sue them. Sue the hell out of them.